Hey, you guys, what's up? Welcome to the This Is Sport, a podcast, episode 4, I believe. I will be alone tonight as my host, Coach Zach, is out doing family stuff tonight. So you got just me, and I will be talking about all sorts of stuff. First and foremost, I do want to give a shout out to the team over at Apollo Houston. If you don't know, check out the bottom scroll. Podcasts, Twitch streams, Twitter, they're all there. They love their city, they love their teams. A big shout out to those guys. The merch that I have is this H Town versus everyone in the orange, and orange and blue is my color. I'm not gonna lie, I love the orange and blue. A couple others that I picked up from the squad. Apollo Hour. This one's, I love this one. Pick this one up as well. Yeah. Swinging and banging. And then this one they just dropped, so I had to get it. Buzzer free. If you don't get that one, it is a call to the Altuve home run a few years back, as they would not let him rip the jersey off. And then a few days ago, last week, he hits another home run off the Yanks and tears it off. And everyone freaking out. But yeah, so all the guys on Twitter, Apollo Dez, Apollo Houston, go check out their stuff. Josh Strohs, JT, Colin, all those guys. They're phenomenal. Like I said, they rep their city to the fullest, and it's respect. I love it. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, you're a Houston fan. I'm not necessarily a Houston fan. I'm a Dodger fan. I just don't live in the past. So orange and blue are my color. I like it. I think I look good in orange and blue. I do like a couple of the Astros. I'm not going to lie. Altuve, Correa. Big fan of La Pena and guys in the past like Biggio, Bagwell, obviously Nolan Ryan. I don't live in the past. I'm over this whole cheating scandal bit. That's why I love that buzzer free shirt. I thought that was cool. But like I said, go to the website, visit them, get their merch. It's really solid. Whether you're from Houston or not, anyone can rock it. It's good wear. It's lightweight, good summertime wear. They have lots of other merchandise as well as tank tops, women's tees, things of that nature. So yeah, go check them out. Apollo Houston, Apollo Hugh, but yeah, give those guys a shout on Twitter, give them a follow, give them a like, go check out their stuff, subscribe, do all that awesome stuff. Tell them David sent you. So let's get into this whole Altuve buzzer situation. First and foremost, let's knock that out right out of the bat. Right before the All-Star break, hits a home run. He's coming around third. They start ripping off his shirt. And if you remember back, the reason he gave as to why he didn't want his shirt ripped off in the playoff game was because he had a bad tattoo, cover up, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when the jersey was ripped, there was no big, huge tattoo, and kind of it started that fire again for the Houston haters of, oh, where's this tattoo? Where's this? Where's this? Let it go, man. If you're living in the past, you're not moving forward. There's no point right now to argue that. It looks like he has a small tattoo, nothing major. Again, I'm not checking out a guy's body, so I didn't get a good look. But again, even as a Dodger fan, I'm over it. I've talked about it before. Everyone cheats. My disdain goes more towards the MLB and Manfred for not punishing the guys involved, not necessarily the guys themselves. I still have much respect for Altuve and those guys. Proven what they've done this year. They're first in a lot of categories without the trash cans. So it's cool to see them. I'm actively rooting for these guys as long as they don't play my Dodgers. And I'm rooting for them because everyone else is going the other way. Everyone, I mean, they're not even in stadiums, and their fans are screaming, oh, "Fuck Altuve, Houston sucks," and they're 3,000 miles away on the other end of the country. And I am someone who, when the sheep go one way, I tend to be going the other way, not just to be contradictory, but I like to see people like that succeed. So when all these people are like, oh no, they suck, they cheated, I hope they fail, I hope they succeed. And I hope they prove these haters wrong and they shut them up. Again, as long as they don't play my Dodgers in the World Series, 7-game series, that'd be fun. But if they don't, if let's just say San Diego goes and it's San Diego and Houston, I probably would be cheering for Houston. Because again, I want to see them succeed in the face of all this hate, which is something that they get a lot of. And I think it's undeserved hate, honestly. But I like how they've taken it in stride. They kind of know that they're the villain or the anti-hero, if you want to call it that. The fans of Houston have been remarkable through this whole thing. Even the guys at Apollo Houston are wonderful about joking with it and obviously making the T-shirts and stuff like that. You can tell they have a good sense of humor about it. But yeah, again, ApolloHouston.com. Check them out. Follow the guys on Twitter. Thanks for the shirts, guys. I appreciate it. So one big thing that dropped this past week was Richard Sherman. If you don't know what's going on with Richard Sherman, he was in Washington this past week. And he recently entered a plea of not guilty for, I think it's like 5 misdemeanors. So he was allegedly drunk, crashed into a construction site, left said construction site, went to his in-laws' house and started banging on the door, yelling and screaming. He was obviously drunk. And then he tried getting in, like he tried like shouldering the door. And you could honestly see why no one in the NFL wants him right now, because there's no strength there. I mean, if that was Cam Chancellor, that door would have been knocked off his hinges probably the first hit. But no, poor. I feel bad for the guy. Like he obviously he's going through something. And you know, he was a free agent. There was talk about him coming to Seattle again. Dallas was in the mix. I think the Raiders were in the mix as well. But he put out a statement, obviously saying he's going through stuff mentally, but that doesn't excuse his actions. So he's taking accountability for his actions, but he's pleading not guilty, which to me is, I mean, idiotic. Like, we have it on the Ring video doorbell that you were trying to break into a house that wasn't yours. Then you got belligerent with officers, allegedly. Just take your punishment, man. Just, I mean, I get it. You're rich. You're a football player. You have lots of money. You'll probably get off with a slap on the wrist. And then Jerry Jones will sign you on the Cowboys because we know he loves his criminals. But I don't think he's a victim in this. It's and a lot of people in the media are coming, oh no, he is a victim. He's a victim of this and this and this. But no, if he has issues, that's on himself. Like, if he's getting help, great. But you can't get drunk, crash into shit, and then go bang on someone's door. Like, that doesn't make you a victim. I'm sorry. Like, get the fuck over it. Like, we live in a society right now where we baby people. Like, grow the fuck up. Like, if I go rampage drunk, hit a barrier, and then I go to, I don't know, my next door neighbor's house and start banging on his door and trying to break in, I'm going to jail. And I'm not a victim, and I'm not going to pretend I am a victim. Oh, alcohol is is to blame here. Like, no, like I chose to drink. So he is he got released without bail, which obviously isn't surprising. They did issue out a protection, like a restraining order. He can't have contact with the father-in-law, which is the house he was trying to break into at the time. He's vowed to get the help that he needs, et cetera, et cetera. Again, Richard Sherman coming to the end of his career in terms of the NFL. This might be the nail in the coffin. Honestly, because I can't think of anyone other than the Cowboys who would want that headache. A declining cornerback with no speed anymore, who at one time was probably the best corner in the game, don't get me wrong, but now he's not worth the risk. He's not worth the roster spot. You can fill it with someone younger, faster, and teach him the game. I feel bad for Richard that he's going through this, but it is of his own volition. I really do hope he gets the help that he deserves. And I hope that at some point he can look back on that and realize that, you know, that he wasn't the victim. And hopefully the media at this point can be like, you know, let the man take accountability and stop portraying him as the victim in this. Like, if you watch Speak for Yourself, those two guys, who I normally agree with, but I saw their show today and I completely disagreed with their assessment on this situation. In other football news, Aaron Rodgers still has yet to report. If I'm a gambling man, I think he stays with the Packers, because I think his options right now are to play with the Packers or retire. I don't think the Packers are going to get rid of him, although I think they could get a haul for a guy who just came off his MVP year. They could get a decent haul for him, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to play hardball, and I think Aaron Rodgers, being the stubborn ass that he is going to play hardball as well. And I'm trying to think of teams that would obviously take him, and I honestly believe Denver is one of those teams. But even with Aaron Rodgers, you're playing Mahomes twice a year. Justin Herbert, who had a phenomenal rookie year, twice a year. Derek Carr, who is a top 10 quarterback almost every year, twice a year. And those teams are just getting better. So I don't know why you'd want to go to that division. I mean, honestly, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm asking to trade to the Washington football team, where I can probably take a team to 500 and make the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's weird, but I don't expect him to leave Green Bay. I expect him to play for Green Bay this year or retire. It's one extreme or the other. I think Green Bay is not going to let him go. I don't. Then on the other quarterback issue, Deshaun Watson, I haven't heard much from him ever since the allegations came out about his misconduct. I don't know where that stands. I don't want to get into it, but if I'm a gambling man, I don't think we see him this year, at least the first half of the season. Football season is right around the corner, a couple months away, and they're still investigating his issues. I think he steps away for at least part of the year. And I think he plays for Houston again, unless Houston gets a massive, massive deal. Because Deshaun Watson is a solid MVP quarterback if he's given the tools. And the team to help succeed. You know, you can't trade J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins and all these guys and tear that team down and expect him to win anything. Excuse me. I just football season right now is kind of on my back burner. I haven't been paying attention that much to it. Haven't even been getting ready for my fantasy football. Baseball, on the other hand, is kind of in mid-season. They just got done with the All-Star game. Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto put on a show in the first round of the Home Run Derby. It was fun to watch, and I think that's probably the best spectacle in all of like all-star sports. You know what I mean? Like the dunk contest is getting stale. The 3-on-3, the skills competition. Football had their all-star game, their pro whatever, their pro games, whatever they call it. They used to have the quarterback contest, and I thought that was really fun to watch. But I think the home run derby, I think, is by far probably the best spectacle of all-star games. Just because you see these guys hit monster 500 plus foot home runs, and they're hitting them out of stadiums, and it's fun to watch. And Ohtani, who I think at the break was at 33, was probably one of the favorites to come in. And I mean, unfortunately, Juan Soto was just on fire, and they went at each other in the first round. They ended up tied. They went to there was like a minute free for all to see who could get the most home runs. They tied after that, and then they went to a swing off where you got 3 swings, and Juan Soto went 3 for 3, 3 home runs. Like, bro brought it. And Shohei Ohtani, I mean, maybe it was nerves, maybe it was the pitcher. He couldn't keep up. And Vlad Guerrero Jr. won the home run derby. Good for him. Man, he's a big boy, and he's got a powerful swing. He's another player I like watching, him and Bo Bichette on the Blue Jays. But Vladdy's got power. Good for him. Good for his family. Like if you remember his dad, Vlad Guerrero, bro had a golf swing and would punch balls out of the stadium. It was ridiculous. So, you know, it's good to see Vladdy Jr. finally coming on the big stage. And then in the All-Star game, the very first, Shohei Ohtani starting, leading off against Fernando Tatis. He threw like 2 fastballs right off the bat, and then a slider, and then I think it was like a curveball. Eventually it induced a fly ball and got him out. Man, I really thought Ohtani would just be tired after the home run derby, honestly, and try to throw a hard, fastball right over the plate. And I thought Tatis would crush it, but he didn't. AL won the game, which means absolutely nothing in terms of all-star stuff. I think it means like the AL gets home field advantage. I mean, good for them. It's, you know what I mean? Like, sure, like it's needed. Sometimes, obviously, during that Houston-Washington World Series, it didn't matter who was home, who was away. But while I do think the All-Star game is useless, I do love the home run derby. And I was watching a clip. I think it was Japan. They had a bunt contest. Like they would bunt on 2 targets that had points on them. And I thought that was really cool. And maybe that's something we could see soon, and we could actually see guys bunt for points. I thought that was really cool. But baseball's back today. First set of games, and let me see what we got here, man, because I know some of the games are going on right now, and Pirates lead the Mets. Holy shit. Padres 19, Washington Nationals 8, and that's in the 7th. 19. That's impressive. Brewers over the Reds 11-5 in the 8th. Rays tied. Rays and Braves are tied, bottom of the 8th. Braves are someone that I thought their season is done with the ACL or MCL injury. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Royals are ahead of the Orioles right now. Astros are leading the White Sox 3-1. Cardinals are behind. Giants lead that game 4-1. Dodgers are up 7-4 on the Rockies. Mariners are up 4-1 on the Angels. Cubbies 1-0 on the Diamondbacks. All tied up in Oakland as they play the Indians. Phillies beat the Marlins in 7, 5-2. Red Sox beat the Yanks 4-0. Not a surprise there. Yankees have been horrible. We'll see what happens going on the second half of the season. Rangers lose to the Blue Jays 10-2. Marlins won the first game of the doubleheader 7-0 over Philly. And then there was a postponement for the Minnesota game. But let's talk about the Braves real quick because they did have, unfortunately, a horrible injury this past week right before the All-Star game. It was Acuna Jr. Hit his MCL. He's done for the year, and I thought that's probably the end of the Braves season as he is such a big part, and they've already been riddled with injury. They did go out and they picked up Jock Peterson from the Cubs. It looks like the Cubs are sellers. It looks like Chris Bryant will be on the market, obviously a one-year deal because I think he's a free agent this year. It'll be interesting to see the Cubs sell. Be interesting to see where they go because you got teams that are really solid World Series contenders. There's teams out there right now that, I mean, from the NL, you got the Dodgers, you got San Diego. I think the Mets are viable World Series contenders. That maybe I think that's really it from the NL. But I mean, Houston. I think the White Sox are viable contenders. I think the Red Sox are viable contenders. So it's going to be a good trade market. It's going to be fun to watch where these guys go, who buys, who sells, and who makes the moves to make their roster better. It's pretty awesome this time of year for baseball. In terms of movement, again, if you know me, I don't pay that much attention to baseball till late in the year, just because, again, it's not something I can watch on TV. Now, if I'm at a game, that's completely different. But I thought the Braves season was over when Acuna went out, and they went out and got Jock Peterson, who former Dodger. Sad he left, but I'm glad he landed somewhere else. So yeah, with baseball, my midway standings. If, like I said, if I'm honest and I'm looking at World Series contenders, I'm probably looking at Boston, White Sox, Houston. Tampa Bay's playing good ball, and they've played good ball since last year, and then I just don't know if they have what it takes to get over the hump of a Red Sox or Houston. I think it's going to be one of those two teams coming out of the AL, and it's going to come down to pitching. In the NL, we have the Mets, who I think are a viable team, and if Noah Syndergaard comes back and is throwing that fire with DeGrom, like they're gonna be a solid World Series contender. Milwaukee's playing good ball. I think they're a little underrated, but I also think it's part of the division that they play in. It's not great, but as proved in the NHL with the Montreal Canadiens, you don't need to have a great division in order to reach the championship game. You just have to be a great team. And I think the Brewers are really good. I think they have the pieces. I just don't know if they have that it factor to go over. San Francisco is currently leading the West, which again baffles me If you watched the last podcast, I was kind of surprised that they're there. But the Dodgers had dealt with injury, couple guys here and there, so they haven't had their full squad. I think they're still missing Seager. And I think when he comes back, the Dodgers turn that corner and they put it into high gear. They flip that switch and they end up winning the division. And I think San Diego turns it on and pulls into second. And I think we're looking at New York, Milwaukee, San Francisco, or San Diego and Los Angeles as the viable contenders from the NL. And out of those teams, I want to be biased and say Los Angeles goes to the World Series. But, I mean, all these teams are really solid, and they seem to be putting it together. So, I'm going to go with Los Angeles, but I'm going to be open to changing that as the season rolls on and as we get closer to the playoffs. So I see it an Astros Dodgers World Series, which I think would be good for baseball, and fun to watch 100%. But let's move away from baseball and do a quick talk of the NBA. NBA finals are going on. Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks. Suns should be up 3-1. And if Chris Paul even had a remotely decent game, they would have won the other night. But Chris Paul looked awful. I think he had like 10 points, 5 turnovers. He looked like Cliff Paul, the All-State agent. Devin Booker played a phenomenal game, carried that team in a horribly officiated game both ways. Like, I'm not even going to lie. It was horribly officiated both ways. Giannis played really well. Devin Booker played phenomenal. And if Chris Paul even has a remotely decent game, Suns win. I still think the Suns win in 7. But that the game tomorrow is in Phoenix, and then they go game 6 in Milwaukee, game 7 in Phoenix. So it's best of 3 right now. Phoenix being up 2-0, I thought they'd get one in Milwaukee, and they should have. And they got blown out in game 3. I think that was expected. Milwaukee wasn't going to go down without a fight. But game 4, that will forever haunt Phoenix if they don't win this title. And I think it dings Chris Paul, his legacy, if he doesn't redeem himself, because it was an absolute choke job. All Devin Booker needed was a little bit of help from you, and you couldn't do it, and you turned the ball over at crucial moments, and you slipped and fell, and it makes you see Chris Paul in a different light. And I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he has been for his 16 or 17 years that he's been in the league. But there's a reason he's not a champion, and there's a reason why the teams he has been on have choked. I'm sorry, the Clippers choked. He was on Houston and choked. He's on the Suns, and that they were up 2-0. Now it's 2-2, and ever since game 1, he's gotten progressively worse in terms of his point production and his turnovers. Like, his turnovers have gone up. Like, if Chris Paul does not show up, it will be on Devin Booker and it will be on DeAndre Ayton to carry this team. And while I do think they can do it, it will be extremely hard. If Chris Paul shows up, if the Chris Paul we know shows up, if the point guard shows up, the Suns will win this. I think, again, still in 7, but it won't be as hard. But I really hope that Chris Paul figures it out, gets out of his own head, because the city of Phoenix, I think, really could use this title right now. And I think it'd be cool for not only Chris Paul, but the city of Phoenix all together. In other basketball news, there were reports that Damian Lillard is going to put in a trade request with the Portland Trailblazers, which some people were surprised by it. because he has been so loyal to not only the Portland Trailblazers, but the city of Portland. He's been active in the community. He's an awesome player. He's a great role model. And they just haven't taken the steps to get better or make a team around him. Yes, he has CJ McCollum, who I think is a good third or fourth option, but he doesn't have a viable superstar next to him to help him out. An aging Carmelo Anthony is not the answer. But he came out and said that those are false reports, that he is not putting in a trade request right now. I don't know if I believe that, but for the sake of Team USA, which is another story, I think he's trying to sweep it under the rug for now. I think eventually he will ask for a trade because I just don't see Portland doing what they need to do to keep him. But at 32 years old, playing the way he does, I don't know how much longer Dame Lillard has left. But the teams that obviously were reported were the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers, Philadelphia Sixers. I think the Miami Heat were in there, and the Dallas Mavericks. So quite the list of perennial contenders. I wouldn't want to go to Golden State. I think they've had their run. As good as I think Steph is and Clay is, I don't see them making another run like they did. In fact, Steph's got 1 year left on his contract. I don't think he works out an extension. I think he leaves Golden State. That's my prediction there. But Dame needs to get out of Portland, and I think after the Olympics, I think we're gonna hear more about it. I'd like to see him with the Lakers. Of course, I would. You can see the boop boop. Because I think him and Braun would be phenomenal, and Braun could then take a step back and be that third option from Dame to Davis to Braun. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have to play so hard or so long, and he could load manage essentially. Speaking of load management, Kawhi Leonard has had successful surgery. Come to find out that he was hurt. But I think they have player options this year, honestly, on the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi. I'm kind of hoping they opt out. I think this Clippers, it's not going to work, and it's not for lack of trying. I think the Clippers are a cursed team. I think they're just one of those teams that are going to be forever cursed. Kawhi has 2 rings, has 2 MVPs, finals MVPs. I don't think he's worried about another championship. I think he would like one, but I don't think he really cares that much about it. I think he's going to go where he's going to get paid. Paul George, on the other hand, wants a title. Paul George needs a title. And for that reason, I could see him going to LA. I could see him going to Philly. I could even see him going to Milwaukee and joining Giannis and giving them another viable shooter. So we'll see what happens come playoff time or come NBA preseason time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because a lot of players are on options right now. So like I said, Kawhi, Paul George, I think Russell Westbrook has one. But in other basketball news, Team USA has played awful. We lost to Nigeria. We've lost to Australia. And for a nation that used to dominate this sport, it's a bad look for the USA, but is a good look for basketball as a whole, as an entire entity. We've seen Luka Doncic take his national team to the Olympics for the first time ever. We've seen Nigeria and Australia beat the US. We've seen Spain improve. We've seen Germany improve. We are no longer the dominant powerhouse we once were, and that's good for the sport. But Bradley Beal and Kevin Love have both left the team, which does hurt. And you're bringing in JaVale McGee and someone else. I can't remember who it was. Our problem is we have too many players on our team that are me players, that are selfish players. And in a Olympic situation, that's not what you need. That's not what you want. In the 90s when we had the dream team, yeah, sure, that'll work. But you had Magic, Jordan, Barkley, Bird, Ewing, Stockton, Malone, Christian Laettner. You had these guys, and they were essentially, they could work together. They were a team, but they all had individual talents. But you got a USA team now where these guys don't. They're not team players. They're not, they're not team first guys. They're guys that want the ball. They're ball dominant guys that want to take it to the hole and want to make it about them. And I think come Olympic time, that's going to be an issue. So Coach Pop needs to get some shit together with Team USA and needs to go off on them and say, hey, look, guys, we can't do this. We can't play this way come gold medal. You know what I mean? We have to play as a team. And I think that's what Coach Pop is really good at. I mean, look at those Spurs teams that won titles. He didn't have any single dominant player. He had guys that played well as a team. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Ori, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. He had guys that played like a team, and he needs to find that with Team USA, or we're not going to win a gold medal. USA needs to find their game. So in other sporting news, the Euros just ended. Euro 2020 played in 2021 due to COVID. And Italy are your champions. Italy won in a penalty kick shootout, which was a well-deserved penalty kick. It's a well-deserved win for Italy. They played well. England scored within 2 minutes, and Luke Shaw put one in, and then England went into this shell and started, the term is park the bus. They played defense. They played behind the ball. And Italy just kept pushing forward and pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually got the tying goal, and they kept pushing, and they almost had a couple game winners. Then it goes to extra time, and no one scores, and then we go to penalty kicks. Now, a couple issues I have with this are the manager for England, Gareth Southgate. He put in two guys at the end of extra time, so 120 minutes. Guys haven't played. Puts in Marcus Rashford, essentially puts in Jadon Sancho a little bit earlier, and expects these guys to run up and take penalty kicks with no practice. Good on those players to have the courage to do that. The pride of their nation, they weren't afraid of the challenge. I felt Jack Grealish should have come on way earlier. I think Mason Mount should have gone off earlier. Why wasn't Raheem Sterling, one of your top players in the tournament, taking a penalty kick? There are so many questions of Gareth Southgate that I second guess. And I guess we second guess because they didn't win, but I mean, that's the nature of the beast. But Italy tucks away their PKs. England missed a couple, and we'll talk about that. Italy goes home with the Euro, and we are about a year away from the 2022 World Cup. Now, while Italy has a good team, I don't see them being a World Cup favorite. I still think France bounce backs. I think England has a good tournament, but they're young, so it may take another 2 to 4 years before I think they fully mature as a squad. Belgium, obviously, I think had a bad tournament, but I think they show up for the World Cup. Now, on to the PKs. Marcus Rashford, who I believe is 22, 23. Biyako Saka, who is 19, and Jadon Sancho, who is also relatively young, missed or had their kicks blocked. Rashford's had the goalie beat, hit the post, bounced out. Now, idiot hooligan football fans went on racist tangents about these players. Now, all three of these players are black, and they were subject to horrid comments online. Marcus Rashford had a mural of him in England, disgraced, painted over. And he got this mural not for football, but for the things he's done for his community, and for the kids that he helped. It's actually a wonderful story. He fought for food and lunches for underprivileged kids when school was not in session, and he won, and they did this, passed a bill. Great humanitarian act, and that's what that mural was for. And after the Euros, no less than 3 hours after England had lost, it had been painted over and just degraded. It was horrible. Luckily, people from the community came together, fixed it, repainted it, made it look nice. We know that the term fan is short for fanatic. But there comes a time where you need to take a step back and realize that these people are human, that these are young kids, and that young Bukayo Saka, who is 19, missed the final kick in the Euros, and he may never recover from that. I hope that he does. I hope the next chance that he gets to take a penalty, he steps up and puts it in the back of the net, because he needs it. But to subject these kids and these players to racist abuse, because you're angry because your country didn't win a title, is disgusting. It's horrible. And you're probably one of the lowest forms of life in human that I could possibly imagine. Marcus has missed penalties for Manchester United before. I think he'll bounce back. Jadon Sancho, I think, bounces back. I'm worried about the Saka kid. I think it was a lot of pressure to put on him, and I blame Gareth Southgate for that. Saka, all the courage in the world, all the praise goes to him for being 19 and stepping up to take that fifth penalty, knowing that you have to make it to continue, knowing that if you miss it, the tournament's over. But it should have been Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling should have taken that fifth penalty. So I do think England is primed to win major titles. I think they have a good young squad. I just don't know if Gareth Southgate will be the guy to lead them. He comes off to me as a lot like what's his name? Jason Garrett, the NFL coach for used to be the Cowboys, who would literally just sit in the car. That's all he would do. He was an 800 coach, wasn't great, did nothing spectacular. That's what Southgate is to me, and they need to play attacking football. And I feel if they would have played attacking football, that game would have never gone to PKs and never gone to a shootout at all. England would have won outright. But again, second guessing. Things are always easier in hindsight, but congratulations to Italy and all my Italian people. You guys played well. You deserved it. You fought hard for it. Congratulations. Now we move to the preseason of European football, soccer. And we look moves to be made. Manchester United have signed Jadon Sancho, and they're looking at a package that's going to bring in Raphael Varane to kind of bolster their back four. I'm still interested to see what they do goaltender-wise, goalkeeper-wise. David De Gea is still amazing, but Henderson, had a great year at the end of last year. Manchester City seemed to be making moves, and they recently said Raheem Sterling will be up for transfer if another team is interested. Messi, who is arguably and debatedly considered one of the greatest of all time, his contract was up with Barcelona, and he signed another 5-year deal at 50% of his previous contract, in which he will only play 2 years in Barca and then come to the MLS and be an ambassador for Barca the final 3 years. It's being investigated by La Liga because they're having money issues as it is. Messi recently won the Copa America with Argentina, his first major international title. And while it is really good, Copa America doesn't compare to the Euro. So when Ronaldo won the Euro 2016, it's not the same category. It's not the same caliber of team. I do like Messi, but he stayed in his comfort zone signing with Barca again. I would have loved to see him go to the Premier League. I would have loved to see him go to, Serie A, the Bundesliga, and do it at another high level like Ronaldo has done. Ronaldo didn't start with Manchester United. He started with Sporting, but has played in the Premier League, has played in La Liga, has played in Serie A, and has won everywhere he's been, and has played phenomenally everywhere he's been. Messi has been with Barca and only Barca, and while played phenomenally for Barca, while he doesn't have anything to prove to me or anyone else, I would have liked to see him go to another league. Not to prove himself, but to see how he plays in another league. Like, I want to see if he has the ability to make a team better. I'm not going to say Ronaldo makes teams better. He does. But he went to a team in Real that was already stacked. He went to a team in Juve that were already kind of stacked and winning titles. But he still put up good stats, still put up good numbers, and still won trophies. I want to see that with Messi. I want to see him go to, a team that's winning titles. As much as I hate Manchester City, I think they're the only team. I think they're the only team that would have probably bought in on him. I would have loved him on Manchester United. That would have been fun. But yeah, if he went to Bayern Munich and still scored 20 plus goals, and Bayern goes on to win the Bundesliga and Champions League, it's obviously still Messi. Messi can do it on every level. But if he went to if he goes to Bayern and Dortmund win the title, and Messi only has like 15 goals and a few assists, then cool, man. Like, maybe it's just the year. Maybe he's just getting used to German life. Give him a second year. I just wanted to see him in a different league. I wanted to see how he adapted. We all know he can play. He can score against English teams. He's done it in the Champions League time and time again. I want to see it for myself, my own selfish reasons. But he signed with Barca. They're being investigated. We'll see where that ends up. Speaking of the other debatable great of all time, Ronaldo, there is talk that he will leave Juve this season, possible reuniting with Manchester United, or even possibly going to PSG. If you're not familiar with PSG, they are Paris Saint-Germain. They are a Ligue 1 French team. Neymar plays there, Mbappe plays there, but Kylian Mbappe is looking like he will be leaving PSG. If not this year, then probably the next, as Real Madrid are lining up a bid for him. Edison Cavani played there. Zlatan Ibrahimovic played there. They have won Liga 1 a few times in the past handful of years, but they have never won the Champions League, haven't won the big one. And it is interesting to see Ronaldo kind of linked with them. I don't think he goes. I think if anything, he goes back to Manchester United, or we see him on on an MLS team like Inter Miami, or possibly the LA Galaxy or New York City FC, just because those are high profile markets, and we know Ronaldo loves his high profile celebrity life. But I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. I think he's 34, 35, 36, still in peak phenomenal condition, doesn't get injured all too often, and still has the ability to play. And I think if he came to the MLS, we would see records shattered. I do hope, I hope he does come to the MLS, because I would love to see him in the MLS. I have seen him play live, but I would like to see him in the MLS on a consistent basis and go to games and watch. As I am a Sounders season ticket holder, I would love for him to come to Seattle, but I don't think it's his lifestyle. So we are 50 minutes in, and we've talked about pretty much everything I've wanted to talk about tonight. We will end tonight with hockey in the NHL. We are about 6 days out from the expansion draft. The Seattle Kraken will have a chance to take a player that has been unprotected from every team, with the exception of the Golden Knights. Why, you may ask? Well, when the Golden Knights came into existence, they made a deal with the NHL, knowing that another team is coming in, and they forgiven. They basically said, we won't take a cut of the $650 million entrance fee for the Kraken. That gets split among the teams. That $650 million gets split among the 31 teams. So Vegas said, look, we're going to be 4 years in, going in 5. We'll forego the X amount of money in order to be exempt from this draft. And, the commissioner in the NHL said deal, which is great for Vegas. But we are kind of cap strapped right now. But it'll be interesting to see who's protected and not for each teams. And I think that those lists have to be done sometime soon, because I think the draft is Wednesday. So they have to get them in, I thought, by Saturday, so that the Kraken can actually go in to start scouting and looking at who's going to be left unprotected. And there's been a lot of no movement clause contracts. They're NMCs, no movement clause, basically untradeable players that are willing to waive their contracts in order to not be protected. Now, this could be a ploy, because they could have a horrible contract, and if the Kraken are stupid enough to take a big contract, that's going to come off the books of said team, and they're going to be, all right, yes, we did it. One of those horrible contracts, for example, is Brent Burns, who I think is getting paid, or no, sorry, not Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson of the Sharks, who's getting paid like $11 million a year, and he totally hasn't been worth it. But I think they leave him unprotected that way, in case the Kraken say, hey, we do need a solid D-man. Karlsson could be that guy. They take that $11 million hit. Now, there are side deals they can do. They could say, look, we'll take his $11 million contract if you give us so-and-so, or your draft pick. You know what I mean? They can make side deals, which is essentially what Vegas did as well. Vegas picked up some players, threw some side deals in, and created their team. And the rest with Vegas has been history. And while I don't think the Kraken are going to be that successful, I do think there is a chance that they can pick up some really solid players in this expansion draft. And then I believe they have the number 2 pick in the regular draft. So there's a really good chance that this Kraken team starts off with, number 1, a face of a franchise, and then with that second pick, they could draft for their future. Like, again, I don't see them having the success that Vegas did. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unlikely. But they could put a team together that is competitive, and essentially that's what you want to see. I'd be interested to see who the protection list is for each team. We'll have a breakdown of it on our next podcast. I think the draft will be before then, so we'll actually talk about it. And I might do a little pre-draft thing once we find out the protection list of who I think they're going to take. But with that said, I want to tell everyone, have a good night. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Watch the Gold Cup. There is still soccer going on. The U.S. team has been playing phenomenal. Good young squad. They're getting me excited for future World Cups. I think this is a really good team. But you guys have a good night. I will see you next week. Hopefully, Coach Zach will be back, and we will discuss more on This Is Sporta. Until then, see you guys later.